My name is Daisy. I'm 28 years old, and I never imagined my first birth story would include fighting for my life against my own mother-in-law. 9 months of pregnancy had prepared me for pain, but nothing prepared me for the betrayal I felt when Martha blocked that door. As I stood there, contractions ripping through my body, watching my mother-in-law's face twist with rage, I realized this wasn't just about control anymore. This was dangerous, and my baby's life hung in the balance. Before I tell you how my mother-in-law nearly cost me and my baby our lives, drop a comment, letting me know where you're watching from, and hit subscribe if you've ever dealt with difficult in-laws. I met Jack 3 years ago at a small coffee shop downtown. I was working on my graphic design portfolio when he asked if he could share my table since the place was packed. There was something about his warm smile and genuine interest in my work that made the hours fly by. By closing time, I felt like I'd known him my entire life. Our backgrounds couldn't have been more different. I came from a large, boisterous family in California, while Jack was raised by a single mother in Texas after his father died when he was 12. Despite our differences, we connected instantly. Our first date turned into 3 more that same week, and within 8 months, he proposed during a weekend trip to the coast. The wedding was small but perfect. My family flew in from California, filling our venue with laughter and dancing. Throughout the ceremony and reception, I noticed Jack's mother Martha watching me with what I thought was approval. She hugged me tightly at the end of the night, whispering, "Welcome to the family, dear." Those warm feelings didn't last long. After the honeymoon, Jack and I moved into his childhood home with Martha. It was supposed to be temporary while we saved for our own place, but the housing market and our student loans made that goal seem further away each month. Almost immediately, I noticed a shift in Martha's behavior. "The kitchen towels go in this drawer, not that one," she'd say, rearranging things I had just put away. Or, "Jack prefers his shirts folded this way. I've been doing it for years." At first, I brushed it off as her trying to be helpful, but as weeks passed, her comments became more pointed. "Jack always loved my Sunday pot roast. He's probably missing home cooking," she would say after barely touching the pasta I'd prepared. Or, "In this family, we don't waste money on organic produce. Regular vegetables were good enough for Jack growing up, and he turned out just fine." Every decision I made was scrutinized and compared to how she would have done it. When I redecorated our bedroom, Martha reminisced about how Jack had always loved the blue curtains she picked out for him in high school. When I suggested hosting Thanksgiving, she laughed and said, "Oh, honey, you're still learning to cook. Let's not risk ruining everyone's holiday." Jack was caught in an impossible position. When I shared my frustrations, he would talk to his mother, but their conversations always ended with him assuring me, "She doesn't mean anything by it," or "She's just set in her ways." I could see the pain in his eyes, torn between the 2 women he loved most. "She raised me alone after Dad died," he explained one night after a particularly tense dinner. "It's always been just the 2 of us. She's afraid of being replaced." I tried everything to build a relationship with Martha. I asked for her recipes, invited her to lunch, even suggested we take a cooking class together. Each attempt was met with a lukewarm response or outright rejection. "I'm too busy with my church group," she'd say, only for me to discover later she'd cancelled her plans that day. The dynamic shifted dramatically when I discovered I was pregnant. Jack and I were ecstatic, dreaming of nursery colours and baby names late into the night. When we shared the news with Martha, she smiled tightly and said, "Well, I suppose I'm going to be a grandmother now." As my pregnancy progressed, Martha's controlling behaviour intensified. She questioned every decision about the baby, from the brand of prenatal vitamins I took to the type of crib we wanted to buy. "When Jack was a baby, I never needed all these fancy gadgets," became her constant refrain. She would touch my growing belly without asking and make comments about my weight gain at every opportunity. "Are you sure you should be eating, that pregnancy isn't an excuse to let yourself go?" she said once when I reached for a second dinner roll. The situation at home became increasingly uncomfortable, but our financial situation still prevented us from moving out. Jack picked up extra shifts at work, hoping to save enough for a security deposit on an apartment before the baby arrived. At 6 months pregnant, I was diagnosed with gestational diabetes. My doctor warned me that I would need to be vigilant about monitoring my blood sugar and watching for signs of complications. First-time mothers with gestational diabetes sometimes experience labour differently. My doctor explained during a checkup that Jack had to miss due to work. "If anything feels off, don't hesitate to come in. Better safe than sorry." I shared this information with both Jack and Martha when I got home. Jack immediately downloaded an app to help me track my blood sugar and symptoms. Martha scoffed. Doctors these days treat pregnancy like an illness, she said dismissively. When I was having Jack, I worked right up until my water broke. None of this special treatment. As my due date approached, the tension in our house reached a breaking point. Jack was trying his best to mediate between us while preparing for fatherhood, and I was physically and emotionally exhausted from the pregnancy and Martha's constant criticism. Little did I know that the worst was yet to come. The day before everything happened started like any other. I was exactly 1 day away from my due date, feeling enormous and uncomfortable as I waddled around the house. Jack kissed me goodbye that morning, his hand lingering on my belly. Only 1 more day until we officially become parents, he whispered, excitement dancing in his eyes. Unless this little one decides to surprise us early. Around noon, Jack called with unexpected news. There was an emergency situation at the construction site he managed. A water main break threatened to damage newly installed electrical systems. As the site manager, he needed to oversee the emergency response and repairs. It might take all night, he said, the disappointment clear in his voice. The site is about 2 hours away, and with the rain cell reception out there is spotty. My heart sank. Though I tried to keep my voice steady, Jack knew me too well. Hey, it's going to be okay, he reassured me. You're not due until tomorrow, and first babies are almost always late. I'll be back by morning. Before hanging up, Jack asked to speak with his mother. I handed the phone to Martha, who was arranging flowers in the living room. I could only hear one side of the conversation, but it was clear Jack was asking her to keep an eye on me. Of course I'll take care of her, Martha said, her voice softening the way it only did when she spoke to her son. Don't worry about a thing. We'll be just fine. After she hung up, Martha turned to me with a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. Well, looks like it's just us girls tonight. Dinner that evening was tense. Martha had prepared a roast chicken with potatoes, normally one of my favourites, but I found my appetite diminishing as she peppered the meal with comments about my pregnancy. You're carrying so low now. My mother always said that means it's a boy, she remarked, eyeing my belly. Jack was late, almost 2 weeks. I was enormous by the end. When I mentioned that my ankles felt swollen, Martha dismissed my concerns. That's normal. You're probably retaining water because of all the sodium in those snacks you like. I picked at my food while Martha continued her monologue about her pregnancy with Jack, how she never complained and how different things were back then. By the time I excused myself to go to bed, my head was pounding and my back ached fiercely. Sleep didn't come easily that night. The baby was unusually active, performing what felt like somersaults against my ribs. Each time I found a comfortable position, another discomfort would arise. Heartburn, back pain, or the constant need to use the bathroom. Around 3 a.m, I felt what might have been a contraction, a tightening sensation across my abdomen that took my breath away. I waited, watching the bedside clock. Another contraction came 20 minutes later, then another 15 minutes after that. They weren't regular yet, and they weren't particularly painful, more uncomfortable than anything else. Still, with my doctor's warning about gestational diabetes in mind, I decided to start tracking them in the app on my phone. By 6 a.m, the contractions were coming every 12 minutes. I texted Jack, "Think things might be starting. Not sure yet. How soon can you come home?" The message showed as delivered but not read. Poor reception at the construction site, just as he'd warned. I forced myself to take a shower, hoping the warm water might ease the discomfort in my back. As I dried off, another contraction hit stronger than before. I steadied myself against the bathroom counter, breathing through it the way we'd practiced in birthing class. When I emerged from the bathroom, I found Martha in the hallway, already dressed for the day. "You're up early," she commented, looking me over. "Did you sleep poorly?" "I think I might be having contractions." I admitted, one hand instinctively cradling my belly. "They're still far apart, but they're getting stronger." Martha's expression didn't change. First-time mothers always think they're in labour at the slightest twinge. It's probably just Braxton Hicks contractions. Practice ones. "I've been having those for weeks," I explained. "These feel different, more intense." "Trust me, when you're really in labour, you'll know it," Martha said dismissively. "Jack was 2 weeks late, remember? You still have plenty of time." Too exhausted to argue, I retreated to the kitchen to make myself some toast and tea. As I sat at the table, I sent another text to Jack. "Contractions 12 minutes apart now. Call me when you can." The morning crawled by. Martha busied herself with household tasks, occasionally glancing my way when a contraction would make me pause mid-sentence or grip the edge of the table. Each time she would shake her head slightly as if I was being dramatic. By noon, the contractions were 10 minutes apart, and I was growing increasingly concerned about Jack's silence. I tried calling, but the call went straight to voicemail. "Martha?" I said as calmly as I could. "I really think we should start preparing to go to the hospital soon. The contractions are getting closer together." Martha looked up from the cookbook she was studying. "What are you planning to make for dinner tonight? Jack will be home and he's probably going to be hungry after working all night." The disconnect between my situation and her response left me momentarily speechless. "Martha, I don't think I'll be cooking dinner tonight," I finally replied. "I think I'm going to be having a baby." Her lips pursed into a thin line. "Daisy, I know you're uncomfortable, but there's no need to be dramatic. I was in labour with Jack for 20 hours before we even went to the hospital. You need to learn patience." As the afternoon wore on, my anxiety increased along with the frequency and intensity of the contractions. By 4 o'clock, they were coming every 8 minutes, and I had to stop and breathe through each one. Despite Martha's dismissal, I packed my hospital bag and left it by the front door. When I returned to the kitchen, Martha was pulling ingredients from the refrigerator and cabinets, lining them up on the counter. "What are you doing, bae?" I asked, leaning against the doorframe as another contraction began to build. "Getting things ready for dinner," she replied without turning around. "I thought we'd make Jack's favourite beef stew since he's had such a long day. You can chop the vegetables while I prepare the meat." That's when I realised this wasn't just about denial. Martha was actively trying to prevent me from focusing on my labour, as though ignoring it would make it disappear. As the next contraction peaked, I knew things were about to get much worse. The kitchen was warm from the preheated oven as Martha placed a cutting board in front of me with a pile of carrots, potatoes and onions. She handed me a knife, her expression leaving no room for argument. "Start with the onions," she instructed. "Dice them finely the way Jack likes them." I stared at the knife in my hand, then at Martha. "I really don't think I should be standing at the counter right now. My contractions are getting stronger." Martha sighed heavily. "Pregnancy isn't a disability, Daisy. Women have been working through discomfort for centuries. A little activity might actually help move things along if you really are in early labour." To keep the peace, I reluctantly began chopping, having to pause every few minutes as contractions washed over me. Each one seemed to last longer than the one before, and I found myself gripping the edge of the counter, breathing heavily. "You're being too dramatic," Martha commented, watching me from the stove where she was browning chunks of beef. "If you can't handle this, how do you expect to handle actual childbirth?" I bit back a retort, focusing instead on finishing the vegetables so I could sit down. As I moved to the sink to wash my hands, a particularly strong contraction hit, making me double over. In that moment, I felt a warm gush of liquid running down my legs, puddling on the kitchen floor. "My water just broke!" I gasped, a mixture of panic and relief washing over me. There could be no more denying it now. This was real labour. Martha looked down at the puddle on her clean kitchen floor, her nose wrinkling in disgust. "Are you sure you didn't just lose control of your bladder? That happens in pregnancy too, you know." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "No, Martha, my water broke. We need to call the hospital and then head over there. The contractions are getting closer together." I moved toward my phone on the counter, but Martha stepped between me and it, her arms crossed over her chest. "You're overreacting. First-time mothers can labour for days after their water breaks. There's plenty of time to finish making dinner for Jack." The absurdity of the situation might have been comical if it hadn't been so frightening. I was standing in a puddle of amniotic fluid, having regular contractions, and my mother-in-law was more concerned about dinner than the impending birth of her grandchild. "Martha, please," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "The doctor specifically told me that with gestational diabetes I need to go to the hospital right away if my water breaks. There could be complications." Something in Martha's expression hardened. Always with the complications. In my day, we didn't run to the doctor for every little thing. Women just had their babies without all this fuss. I tried to step around her to reach my phone, but another contraction hit. This one so intense that I had to lean against the wall. When I could speak again, I said, "I'm calling the hospital and then I'm going there. You can either drive me or I'll call a rideshare." Martha's face flushed red. She moved to block the doorway, her stance wide and immovable. "Stop making excuses, cook dinner first. You don't need to go to the hospital." I couldn't believe what was happening. My mother-in-law was physically preventing me from seeking medical care while I was in active labour. The realization sent a chill through me, despite the sweat beading on my forehead. "Martha, move out of the way," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "This isn't about you or dinner or Jack coming home. This is about my baby, your grandchild, and right now we both need to go to the hospital." "You think you know better than me," Martha's voice rose, her hands clenched at her sides. "I raised a child on my own. I went through labor. You're just looking for attention, trying to make everything about you as usual." Another contraction gripped me stronger than any before. I gasped, clutching my belly and waiting for it to pass. When I could stand straight again, I looked Martha directly in the eyes. "I'm leaving now. Either move or I'll move you myself." I stepped forward, reaching for the doorknob behind her. Martha's hand shot out, grabbing my wrist with surprising strength. "You're not going anywhere until dinner is ready," she hissed. The pain of her grip combined with another oncoming contraction fueled my desperation. I yanked my arm away from her, determined to get past. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Martha's face contorted with rage as she reached for the pot of soup simmering on the stove. With a scream of fury, she swung the pot toward me, sending a wave of boiling liquid across my arm and shoulder. The pain was immediate and overwhelming, a searing, blistering sensation that made me cry out. I stumbled backward, colliding with the kitchen table, my burned skin already turning an angry red. Martha stood frozen, the empty pot still in her hands, her expression shifting from rage to shock as she seemed to register what she had just done. "Now look what you made me do," she whispered, her voice trembling. In that moment, I understood that this wasn't just about control or jealousy or old habits. This was dangerous. Martha was willing to physically harm me, and by extension my unborn child, rather than relinquish her authority in this house. Through the haze of pain from both the burn and another contraction, one thought crystallized with perfect clarity: I needed to get out of this house, away from this woman, before something even worse happened. I backed away from Martha, cradling my burned arm against my chest. The skin was already blistering, an angry red patch spreading across my forearm and onto my shoulder. The pain was excruciating, a searing sensation that made it hard to think clearly. But the contractions continuing to roll through my body reminded me of the more urgent danger. My baby needed medical attention, and soon. "What have you done?" I whispered, staring at Martha in disbelief. Martha stood motionless, the empty pot still in her hands. For a brief moment, horror flashed across her face as she seemed to realize the magnitude of her actions. Then just as quickly, her expression hardened again. "It was an accident," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "If you hadn't tried to leave..." I didn't wait to hear the rest. Taking advantage of her momentary shock, I pushed past her and hobbled down the hallway toward the bathroom. Another contraction hit, as I reached the door, nearly bringing me to my knees. I managed to get inside and lock the door behind me, just as I heard Martha's footsteps approaching. "Daisy, open this door right now." Her fist pounded against the wood. "You're overreacting. Let me help you clean up that burn." I leaned against the sink, breathing heavily as I examined my injury in the mirror. The burn covered most of my forearm and part of my shoulder, the skin red and beginning to blister. I ran cool water over it, biting my lip to keep from crying out at the contact. "Go away, Martha," I called through the door. "I need to call an ambulance." That's when I realized my phone was still in the kitchen. Panic surged through me as another contraction began stronger than the last. I glanced at my watch. The contractions were now less than 5 minutes apart. According to everything I'd learned in our birthing classes, I should already be at the hospital. I remembered my smartwatch had cellular capability. With trembling fingers, I tried to call Jack, but the call failed to connect. The battery indicator showed less than 10% remaining. I hadn't charged it overnight. "Daisy, please." Martha's voice came through the door again, sounding calmer now. "I'm sorry about what happened. I lost my temper. Come out so we can talk about this." "I'm calling 911, I replied, trying another call on my watch. Again, it failed to connect. Martha's tone changed instantly. "Don't you dare call anyone. This is a family matter. We can handle this ourselves." Another contraction gripped me so intense that I couldn't respond. I slid down against the bathroom wall, trying to remember my breathing exercises. As the pain receded, I heard a different sound. Martha rummaging through drawers in the hallway. "I know you think you're in labor," she called out, her voice strained. "But trust me, you're not ready for the hospital yet. First-time mothers always panic. If we go now, they'll just send us home." The sound of metal against metal made me freeze. Was she trying to pick the lock? "Martha, what are you doing?" I asked, fear making my voice shake. Looking for the bathroom door key, she replied matter-of-factly. This is ridiculous, Daisy. You can't hide in there forever. I glanced around the small bathroom, desperate for options. The window was small but might be large enough for me to call for help if someone was outside. I struggled to my feet, fighting through another contraction to reach it. As I pushed the window open, I heard Martha trying various implements in the door lock. The cool outside air hit my face as I leaned toward the opening. Help! I called out, my voice weaker than I'd hoped. Someone please help me. The street was quiet, no one in sight. I tried again, louder this time, pushing my face closer to the opening. Another contraction hit, stealing my breath and making me double over. When the pain subsided enough for me to straighten, I looked out again and felt a surge of hope. My neighbor Lisa was walking up her driveway, a stack of mail in her hand. Lisa! I screamed, waving my uninjured arm frantically. Lisa, help me, please. Lisa stopped looking around in confusion before spotting me in the bathroom window. Her expression changed from puzzlement to concern as she moved closer. Daisy, what's wrong? I'm in labor, I called out, my voice breaking. My mother-in-law won't let me leave for the hospital. She burned me with boiling soup. Please call 911. Lisa's eyes widened in shock. Stay there. I'm coming over. Behind me. The sound of Martha's efforts on the lock intensified. I could hear her muttering under her breath, frustration evident in every word. Daisy, she called through the door, her voice sickeningly sweet now. I've had time to think, and you're right. If you really believe you're in labor, we should go to the hospital. Come out and I'll drive you. The sudden change in tactics only increased my fear. I didn't trust Martha anymore, not with my safety, and certainly not with my babies. No, Martha, I replied firmly. Lisa is calling an ambulance. Just stay away from me. Martha's response was immediate and frightening. The door shook as she slammed against it. You ungrateful little witch, after everything I've done for you, you think you can turn people against me. This is my house. Jason. Each blow against the door made me flinch. I retreated to the furthest corner of the bathroom, sliding down the wall as another contraction began. They were coming faster now, barely giving me time to recover between them. Through the haze of pain, I heard the distant sound of the front door opening, followed by Lisa's voice, high and concerned. Hello, Daisy, Mrs. Walker. Who are you? What are you doing in my house? Martha's voice moved away from the bathroom door, heading toward the front of the house. I'm Lisa from next door. Daisy called to me from the window. She says she's in labor. I could hear Martha's response, her tone completely transformed. Oh, thank goodness you're here. Yes, Daisy thinks she's in labor, but she's gotten herself worked up into quite a state. She slipped in the kitchen and spilled some soup on herself. Now she's locked herself in the bathroom. I've been so worried. The performance was chilling in its believability. If I hadn't experienced Martha's rage firsthand, I might have believed her myself. She asked me to call 911. Lisa said, her voice uncertain. That's really not necessary, Martha replied smoothly. I was just about to drive her to the hospital myself when she got upset. I gathered what strength I had left and called out, Lisa, don't believe her. She wouldn't let me leave. She threw boiling soup at me. Please call 911. There was a moment of silence, then the sound of rapid footsteps approaching the bathroom. Daisy? Lisa's voice came through the door, closer now. I've already called 911. They're on their way. Can you unlock the door? Another contraction gripped me, more powerful than any before. I couldn't answer, could barely breathe through the pain. As it began to ease, I heard Martha and Lisa arguing in the hallway. She's obviously hysterical, Martha was saying. Pregnancy hormones can make women say all sorts of things. Mrs. Walker, she has burns, Lisa countered firmly. I can see them through the window. And she's clearly in labor. This isn't normal behavior. You don't understand our family dynamics, Martha insisted. Daisy has always been dramatic. Lisa cut her off. The ambulance will be here in minutes. I suggest you stop talking and start getting her things ready. Through the fog of pain and fear, I felt a surge of gratitude for Lisa's clear-headed intervention. Another contraction began building, and I realized with growing alarm that they were now coming one right after another, with barely any break between them. Something was changing in my body. The pressure in my pelvis had intensified, and I felt an overwhelming urge to push. With horror, I realized that I might end up delivering my baby right here on the bathroom floor alone, and without medical help. Lisa, I called out when I could speak again. The contractions are right on top of each other. I think "I think the baby's coming soon." "Just hold on, Daisy," Lisa responded, her voice steady, despite the tension in it. I hear sirens. Help is almost here. The wail of approaching ambulance sirens was the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. As another contraction built, I closed my eyes and prayed that help would arrive in time for my baby. The next few minutes passed in a blur of pain and urgent voices. The paramedics arrived, and after a brief assessment of the situation through the bathroom door, they convinced me to unlock it. 2 emergency medical technicians entered, a woman named Sarah and a man named Miguel. Their calm professionalism a stark contrast to the chaos that had preceded their arrival. "I'm in labour," I managed to say between rapid breaths. "Contractions are right on top of each other. And my arm?" She burned me. Sarah knelt beside me, her eyes quickly taking in the angry red burns on my arm and shoulder. "We're going to take care of you, Daisy. First, let's check how far along you are with the labour." While Miguel set up monitoring equipment, Sarah examined me and confirmed what I already suspected. My labour had progressed rapidly. "You're at 8 centimetres already," she said, her tone professional but urgent. "We need to get you to the hospital right away. The burns also need immediate treatment." They helped me onto a stretcher, careful of my injured arm. As they wheeled me out of the bathroom, I saw Martha standing in the hallway, her face a mask of concern that didn't reach her eyes. Lisa stood beside her, arms crossed, watching Martha like a hawk. "That's my daughter-in-law," Martha said to the paramedics, her voice dripping with false worry. "I've been trying to help her, but she got hysterical and locked herself in the bathroom. The burn was an accident. She knocked over a pot of soup." I opened my mouth to contradict her, but another contraction stole my words. Sarah seemed to understand without me saying anything. "Ma'am, we need to focus on getting the patient to the hospital," she said firmly to Martha. "Her neighbour has already given us an account of what happened." Martha's facade cracked slightly, her eyes narrowing as she glanced at Lisa. "Well, the neighbour wasn't even here when it happened. I was the only one." "We'll sort all this out later," Miguel interrupted, continuing to wheel me toward the front door. "Right now, our priority is the mother and baby." As they loaded me into the ambulance, I heard Martha telling the paramedics she would follow in her car. The thought of her being anywhere near me or my baby sent a fresh wave of panic through me. "I don't want her at the hospital," I told Sarah as she attached monitors to track my vitals and the baby's heartbeat. She tried to stop me from getting medical help. She hurt me intentionally. Sarah exchanged a look with Miguel, who was preparing to drive. "We'll make a note of that for the hospital security team," she assured me. "Your safety is our priority." The ambulance pulled away from the house, sirens blaring. Through the rear window, I could see Martha hurrying to her car, with Lisa still watching from the front lawn, phone in hand. "Your baby's heartbeat is a bit faster than we'd like," Sarah said, drawing my attention back to the monitors. "It's not uncommon during stressful deliveries, but we'll want to keep a close eye on it." The realization that my baby might be in distress because of the delayed medical care sent a cold wave of fear through me. Is my baby going to be okay? Sarah's expression was carefully neutral. "We're going to do everything we can to make sure both of you get through this safely. The hospital is only 10 minutes away." Those 10 minutes felt like hours. The contractions continued to intensify, and I found myself fighting the urge to push. Sarah talked me through each one, coaching me to pant rather than push. "The baby's heartbeat is showing some irregularities," she told Miguel at one point, her voice low but not low enough that I couldn't hear. "Let's step it up." The ambulance accelerated, weaving through traffic. I closed my eyes, focusing on my breathing and trying to send strength to my baby. Through it all, one thought kept circling in my mind. Where was Jack? Did he know what was happening? Would he make it to the hospital in time? When we finally arrived at the emergency entrance, a team of medical professionals was waiting. The next few minutes were a whirlwind of activity, being transferred from the ambulance stretcher to a hospital bed, more monitors being attached, a burn specialist examining my arm while an obstetrician checked my progress. "She's fully dilated, but," the obstetrician announced. "And the baby is showing signs of distress. We need to move her to delivery right away." "The burns are second degree," the burn specialist added. "They'll need treatment, but the delivery takes priority right now." I was wheeled rapidly through corridors, lights flashing above me as medical staff jogged alongside my bed. Another fierce contraction gripped me, and this time I couldn't fight the urge to push. "Try to wait," the obstetrician instructed. "We're almost to the delivery room." Through a haze of pain, I became aware of a commotion behind us. Martha's voice, loud and demanding, rose above the medical chatter. That's my daughter-in-law. I need to be with her. I'm the baby's grandmother. A hospital security guard was blocking her path, his hands raised in a calming gesture. Ma'am, you need to wait in the designated area. The medical team needs space to work. This is outrageous. Martha's face was flushed with anger. I have rights. As they wheeled me around a corner and through double doors, Martha's protests faded. The delivery room was bright and sterile, a team of nurses and doctors moving with practiced efficiency to prepare for the birth. A kind-faced woman in scrubs introduced herself as Dr. Patel. Daisy, I understand you've had quite an ordeal. Your baby's heart rate is concerning us, so we need to work quickly. The stress of your situation has likely contributed to this. Guilt washed over me. Is it my fault? Should I have left the house sooner? Dr. Patel's expression was compassionate but direct. This isn't about blame. You did the right thing seeking medical care when you did. Now let's focus on getting your baby safely delivered. A nurse named Tanya applied a cooling gel to my burns before covering them with sterile dressings. We'll treat these properly after the delivery, she explained. For now, this will help with the pain. Another contraction built impossibly stronger than the last. Dr. Patel positioned herself at the foot of the bed. On the next contraction, I want you to push. The next few minutes were a blur of pain, effort, and encouragement from the medical team. I pushed with everything I had, desperate to deliver my baby safely. The monitors beeped erratically, signaling continued distress. The baby's heartbeat is dropping, someone said urgently. We may need to consider an emergency C-section. Dr. Patel looked at the monitors, then back at me. Daisy, your baby is in distress. The umbilical cord might be compressed. We need to get the baby out quickly. I'm recommending an immediate C-section. Fear and exhaustion overwhelmed me. Where was Jack? He should be here for this. What if something happened to our baby because I couldn't stand up to Martha sooner? Do whatever you need to do, I managed to say. Just save my baby. The anesthesiologist was explaining the procedure when a commotion at the door caught everyone's attention. Jack burst into the room, his face pale and his clothes disheveled. Daisy! He cried, rushing to my side. I just got the messages. What happened? Mum said there was an accident. The relief of seeing him nearly undid me. Before I could explain, Dr. Patel intervened. Sir, are you the father? When Jack nodded, she continued. Your wife needs an emergency C-section. The baby is in distress. We need to move now. Jack's face drained of colour as he took in the scene. The monitors, my bandaged arm, the urgency of the medical team. I'm right here, Daisy, he said, squeezing my hand. I'm not going anywhere. As they prepared me for surgery, I saw Jack's confusion and fear. He didn't know the full story yet. He didn't know what his mother had done. That conversation would have to wait. Right now, all that mattered was our baby. The last thing I remember before the anesthesia took effect was Jack's hand in mine, his voice in my ear. I love you. Stay strong. Then darkness claimed me, and I surrendered to it with a prayer that when I woke, our baby would be safe. I woke slowly, my mind foggy, and my body feeling strangely disconnected. The rhythmic beeping of monitors filled the room, and the antiseptic smell of the hospital surrounded me. For a moment, I couldn't remember where I was or why I was there. Then it all came rushing back. The labour, Martha, the boiling soup, the emergency at the hospital. My baby. Where was my baby? I tried to sit up, but was stopped by a sharp pain across my abdomen. Looking down, I saw the outline of bandages under my hospital gown, evidence of the C-section. My arm and shoulder were also heavily bandaged, the burns a throbbing reminder of Martha's betrayal. Jack, I called out, my voice raspy from the tube that had been down my throat during surgery. A movement to my right caught my attention. Jack was there slumped in a chair beside my bed, his head in his hands. At the sound of my voice, he looked up, his face haggard with exhaustion and worry. But when our eyes met, relief washed over his features. Daisy, he whispered, moving to sit on the edge of my bed. You're awake. How do you feel? The baby, I said urgently. Is our baby okay? Jack took my hand, his expression softening. We have a son. He's in the NICU right now. He had some trouble breathing at first because of the distress during delivery, but the doctors say he's stable. A son. We had a son. Tears filled my eyes. Relief, joy, and lingering fear all mixed together. When can I see him? Soon, Jack promised. The doctor wants to check on you first. You've been through a lot. As if on cue, a doctor entered the room. Not Dr. Patel from the delivery, but an older woman with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She introduced herself as Dr. Levine. "Good to see you awake, Daisy," she said, checking my vitals. "How's the pain?" "Manageable," I replied, though in truth, both my C-section incision and the burns were causing significant discomfort. "I want to see my baby." Dr. Levine nodded. "I understand. We'll arrange that as soon as possible. First, let's talk about what happened. Your son experienced oxygen deprivation during delivery due to the delayed medical intervention. He's stable now, but we're monitoring him closely for any potential issues." I felt a stab of guilt and fear. "Is he going to be okay?" "We're cautiously optimistic," Dr. Levine replied. "Babies are remarkably resilient, but I want to be clear. The delay in getting you to the hospital created a dangerous situation for both of you." Jack's grip on my hand tightened. "What exactly happened?" "Daisy, Mom said you slipped and spilled soup on yourself, then panicked about being in labor." I looked at my husband, seeing the confusion and conflict in his eyes. He didn't know the truth yet. How could he? Martha would have given him her version of events. Before I could respond, a knock at the door interrupted us. A woman I didn't recognize entered, introducing herself as Angela Rivera, a hospital social worker. "I'd like to speak with Daisy about the circumstances of her injuries," she explained. "It's standard procedure when we see burns like these, along with a complicated delivery." Jack's expression changed from confusion to alarm. "What are you suggesting?" Angela's voice remained professional but gentle. "Mr. Walker, the paramedics' report indicated that your wife's burns may not have been accidental. Combined with the account from your neighbor about your wife being prevented from seeking medical care while in labor, we have some concerns." The color drained from Jack's face as he looked between me and the social worker. That can't be right. My mother would never..." Jack," I said softly, knowing this would be devastating for him to hear. "Your mother didn't want me to go to the hospital. When I tried to leave, she blocked the door. She told me I needed to finish cooking dinner first. When I tried to get past her, she threw boiling soup at me." Jack staggered back as if physically struck. "No," he whispered. "There must be some mistake. I'm afraid the burns are consistent with Daisy's account," Dr. Levine added quietly. "The pattern and severity indicate that hot liquid was thrown, not spilled." Jack's face crumpled. "I don't understand. Why would she do that?" Before I could answer, a nurse appeared at the door. "Dr. Levine, Mrs. Walker's mother-in-law, is insisting on visiting. She's becoming quite agitated in the waiting room." A flash of panic shot through me. "I don't want to see her," I said immediately. "Please don't let her in here." The social worker exchanged looks with Dr. Levine, who nodded. "We'll handle this," Angela assured me. "Your safety is our priority. I'll speak with security about keeping her away from your room." As they left to deal with Martha, Jack sank back into the chair beside my bed, his expression stunned. "Daisy, I need to understand what happened. All of it." I took a deep breath and told him everything, from the onset of labor to Martha's dismissal of my symptoms, to the confrontation in the kitchen and the horrifying moment when she threw the soup at me. I described hiding in the bathroom, Martha's attempts to break in, and Lisa's intervention that ultimately saved me and our baby. Jack listened in silence, his face growing paler with each detail. When I finished, he buried his face in his hands, his shoulders shaking. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "This is my fault. I should have seen the signs. I should never have left you alone with her." "You couldn't have known she would go this far," I said, though part of me wondered if the signs had been there all along. In Martha's controlling behaviour, her passive-aggressive comments, her resistance to any change in her domain. Jack looked up, his eyes red-rimmed. "I need to see her. I need to hear her explanation, though I can't imagine what it could possibly be." A nurse entered with a wheelchair. "If you're feeling up to it, Mrs. Walker, you can visit your son now." The mention of our baby pushed everything else temporarily aside. Jack helped me into the wheelchair, careful of my injuries, and the nurse wheeled me to the NICU. After putting on protective gowns, we were led to a small incubator where our son lay tiny and perfect, despite the tubes and monitors attached to him. "He's beautiful," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "Have you named him yet?" Jack shook his head. "I was waiting for you." Looking at our son, his delicate features, the rise and fall of his small chest, I felt a fierce protectiveness, unlike anything I'd ever experienced. "Noah," I suggested. "It means rest and comfort." Jack nodded, a tear sliding down his cheek. Noah it is. We spent an hour with our son marveling at his tiny fingers and the dusting of dark hair on his head. The NICU doctor assured us that while Noah needed monitoring, his vitals were improving steadily. As we were preparing to leave the NICU, a hospital security guard approached us. "Mr. Walker, there's a situation with your mother in the waiting area. The social worker asked me to find you." Jack looked torn, glancing between me and the direction of the waiting room. "Go," I said quietly. "This needs to be addressed. I'll be okay." Jack squeezed my hand. "I'll be back soon. I love you, Daisy." After returning to my room, I tried to rest, but my mind kept replaying the events of the day. How had things escalated to this point? What would happen now? Could our family ever heal from this? I must have dozed off because I woke to the sound of voices outside my door, Jack's and another woman's that I recognized as Lisa's. "I came to check on her," Lisa was saying. "How is she doing?" "Better," Jack replied. "Thank you for what you did. If you hadn't been there..." "Don't think about that," Lisa said firmly. "I'm just glad I was home when she called for help." They entered the room together, Jack looking emotionally drained and Lisa carrying a small bouquet of flowers. "These are for you," she said, placing them on the bedside table. "How are you feeling?" "Grateful," I replied honestly. "You saved us, Lisa." She shook her head. "You saved yourself by calling out. That took courage." After Lisa left, promising to check on me again tomorrow, Jack sat heavily in the chair beside my bed. "I spoke with my mother," he said, his voice hollow. "What did she say?" "At first she denied everything. Said you were confused hormonal. When I told her about the burn pattern and Lisa's account, she changed tactics. Said she was just trying to help, that you misunderstood her intentions." Jack ran a hand over his face. "Then when she realized I wasn't buying it, she broke down." "What do you mean?" I asked. "She admitted she didn't want you to go to the hospital yet. Said she felt like she was losing control. Of me, of our family, of her place in our lives. She said the pregnancy made her feel replaced, irrelevant." Jack's voice cracked. "She said she didn't mean to hurt you, that throwing the soup was a momentary loss of control. But Daisy, the way she said it was like she still believed she was justified somehow." I absorbed this in silence, understanding for the first time the depth of Martha's insecurity and possessiveness. "The police came," Jack continued. "The hospital called them about the assault. They took statements from the medical staff about your injuries. They want to talk to you when you're feeling stronger." The thought of pressing charges against Martha was overwhelming. Part of me wanted justice for what she'd done, for the danger she'd put my baby in. Another part recognized that she was Jack's mother, Noah's grandmother, a permanent part of our family, whether I liked it or not. "What do you want to do?" I asked Jack, watching his face carefully. He met my eyes, his expression resolute, despite his obvious pain. "I want to protect you and Noah. I failed at that today, but I won't fail again. My mother needs help, professional help, and until she gets it, she can't be part of our lives." Relief washed over me. Jack was choosing us, our new family unit, over the unhealthy dynamic with his mother. It wouldn't be easy for him, I knew, but it was necessary. "The police are holding her for now," Jack said. "We don't have to decide about pressing charges immediately. But Daisy, whatever you decide, I'll support you. You and Noah are my priority now." I reached for his hand, wincing slightly as the movement pulled at my burns. "We'll figure it out together, one step at a time." Jack nodded, bringing my hand to his lips. One step at a time. As evening fell, a nurse brought Noah to us for a brief visit. Holding my son against my chest, feeling his warmth and the miracle of his tiny breaths, I made a silent promise. I would protect him fiercely, love him unconditionally, and build a family environment where respect and boundaries were sacred. The cycle of control and manipulation that Martha had perpetuated would end with us. Jack watched us, love and determination mingled in his gaze. "We're going to be okay," he said softly. "All of us." Looking down at Noah, then up at Jack, I believed him. The road ahead would be challenging. Healing from physical and emotional wounds, restructuring our family boundaries, possibly navigating legal proceedings. But we would face it together stronger for having survived this crucible. "Yes," I agreed. "We are." 1 week later, Noah was still in the hospital, but making steady progress. My C-section incision was healing well, though the burns on my arm and shoulder would take longer to fully recover. Each day brought small victories. Noah taking his first bottle, my ability to hold him without wincing in pain, Jack's growing confidence as a father. The police had taken my statement about what happened with Martha. After careful consideration and many discussions with Jack, I decided to press charges for assault. It wasn't an easy decision, but I believed it was necessary, both for justice and to establish a clear record of what had happened. Martha had been released on bail with orders to stay away from me and Noah. Jack had spoken to her only once since then, a painful conversation where he made it clear that she needed professional help before she could have any relationship with us or her grandson. "We can't stay in that house anymore," Jack said one afternoon as we sat beside Noah's incubator. "Too many bad memories." I nodded in agreement. The thought of returning to the kitchen where Martha had thrown the soup made my skin crawl. But our financial situation hadn't magically improved, and the medical bills were mounting despite our insurance. "We'll figure something out," I assured him, though I wasn't sure how. The next day, Jack's sister Amy arrived from Chicago. I'd met her only twice before, at our wedding and once during the pregnancy. She and Jack had never been especially close, largely due to Martha's tendency to favor Jack after their father died. Amy's reaction to what had happened was immediate and unequivocal. "I'm not surprised," she said bluntly when Jack told her the full story. "Mom has always been controlling, but this is a new level even for her." Amy revealed that Martha had driven away her fiancé years ago, with similar behavior, constantly criticizing and undermining their relationship. "That's why I moved so far away. I needed the distance to have my own life." With Amy came an unexpected solution to our housing problem. "Stay with me," she offered. "I have a guest house on my property. It's small, but it's private and furnished. You can stay as long as you need until you find your own place." Jack and I exchanged surprised looks. "Are you sure?" he asked his sister. "That's a big offer." Amy's expression softened. "I've let Mum keep us apart for too long. This is my nephew, my family too. Let me help." 2 days later, Noah was finally released from the NICU. The doctors were cautiously optimistic about his development, though we would need to monitor him closely and bring him in for regular checkups. The relief of finally taking our son home, even if home was now Amy's guest house rather than the place where we'd prepared his nursery, was overwhelming. The guest house was indeed small but cozy and bright. Amy had somehow managed to acquire a crib and basic baby supplies in the short time since offering us the place. Jack and I settled in, exhausted but grateful for this safe haven. During those first weeks at Amy's, we established a new rhythm as a family of 3. Jack took leave from work to help care for Noah and support me as I recovered. My burns required regular visits to a specialist, and the pain was sometimes intense, but watching them slowly heal served as a tangible reminder that all wounds, even the deepest ones, could eventually mend. Martha remained a complicated presence in our lives, though physically absent. She began seeing a therapist, sending written progress reports to Jack through her lawyer. She also sent cards and gifts for Noah, which we set aside uncertain of how to handle them. Jack struggled with his feelings about his mother. Anger, disappointment, guilt, and lingering love all warred within him. "I keep replaying our entire relationship in my head," he confessed one night as we lay in bed, Noah sleeping peacefully in his crib nearby. "Looking for signs, I missed ways I could have prevented this." "This isn't your fault," I reminded him. "Your mother made her own choices." "I know," he sighed. "But I still feel responsible somehow. She raised me alone after Dad died. We were a team, you know. It's hard to reconcile that person with someone who could hurt you and Noah." I understood his conflict even as I worked through my own complex feelings about Martha. The fear and betrayal I'd felt that day hadn't disappeared, but I was beginning to recognize that Martha's actions stemmed from deep-seated issues that had nothing to do with me personally. "Your mother needs help," I said gently. "And it's okay to want her to get that help even while maintaining boundaries to protect us." Jack nodded, pulling me closer. "How did I get so lucky to find someone so wise?" "Just lucky, I guess," I replied with a small smile. 6 months after Noah's birth, we had established a new normal. We'd found our own apartment, small but affordable, in a neighborhood not far from Amy's. Jack had returned to work and I was doing freelance graphic design from home while caring for Noah. My burns had healed, though I would always carry the scars, both physical and emotional, from that day. Martha had been continuing therapy and, according to her counselor, was making genuine progress in understanding her controlling behaviors and their impact on others. The legal case had been resolved with a plea agreement that included mandatory continued therapy community service and a restraining order that could be modified over time if certain conditions were met. After much discussion, Jack and I agreed to allow Martha to meet Noah under strictly supervised conditions. The first visit took place in a neutral setting, a family counselling centre with both Martha's therapist and a social worker present. I was tense as we entered the centre, Noah secured in my arms. Jack squeezed my hand reassuringly. "We can leave any time you want," he reminded me. Martha was already waiting in the visiting room, her hands fidgeting nervously in her lap. She looked smaller somehow, less imposing than I remembered. When she saw us, her eyes immediately filled with tears. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice wobbling. "I know I don't deserve this chance." The visit was awkward but peaceful. Martha made no attempt to take Noah from me instead, asking permission before even touching his hand. She spoke little about herself, focusing instead on asking appropriate questions about Noah's development and our lives. At the end of the hour, Martha looked directly at me for the first time. "Daisy, I know words aren't enough. What I did was unforgivable. I'm not asking for forgiveness right now, just the opportunity to show that I'm changing, that I understand how wrong I was." I nodded, unable to offer more at that moment, but acknowledging her effort. As we left the centre, Jack asked, "How do you feel?" "Okay," I said, somewhat surprised to find it was true. "It's a start." By Noah's first birthday, we had established a careful routine of monthly supervised visits with Martha. Each meeting became slightly less strained than the one before, though full trust remained a distant goal. Martha had moved into a senior community, giving us space, while also providing her with a social network beyond just Jack. For Noah's birthday party, a small gathering in our apartment with Amy, Lisa, and her husband and a few friends, we decided to invite Martha for a brief defined visit toward the end of the celebration. It was a test of sorts, seeing how she would handle being in our home and interacting with others who knew what had happened. To my relief, Martha respected every boundary we had set. She arrived exactly when scheduled, brought only the gift we had approved in advance, and made no attempts to dominate the event or criticize our home or parenting. When Noah became fussy, she didn't offer unwanted advice or try to take over. Instead, she watched quietly as Jack and I worked together to comfort him. Before leaving, Martha pulled me aside. "I want you to know," she said quietly, "that I think of what I did every day. The therapy has helped me see how my fear of abandonment and need for control hurt the people I should have protected. I don't expect you to ever fully trust me again, but I'm grateful for every moment you allow me with Noah." I studied her face, searching for signs of the manipulation that had once characterized our interactions. Instead, I saw something new: humility and what appeared to be genuine remorse. "It's a long road, Martha," I replied honestly, "but we're taking it one step at a time." That evening, after all the guests had gone, and Noah was asleep in his crib, Jack and I sat on our small balcony, looking out at the night sky. "Did you ever imagine our first year of parenthood would look like this?" Jack asked, his arm around my shoulders. I leaned into him, considering the question. "No," I admitted, "but in some strange way I think we're stronger for having gone through it." It was true. The crisis had forced us to establish firm boundaries, to communicate more openly, and to truly function as a team. We had learned who we could count on, like Lisa and Amy, and had built a support network that didn't revolve solely around Martha. Most importantly, we had learnt to trust our instincts as parents and partners. The woman who had cowered in that bathroom, terrified and alone, felt like a different person from the mother I had become. Still learning and sometimes struggling, but confident in my ability to protect my child and stand up for myself. "You know what I've realized?" I said, watching the stars emerge above us. "Sometimes the most painful experiences teach us the most valuable lessons. What happened with your mother was traumatic, but it taught me how strong I really am, how strong we are together." Jack pulled me closer, pressing a kiss to my temple. "You're the strongest person I know, Daisy. I fall more in love with you every day." As we sat there in comfortable silence, I reflected on the journey of the past year. The scars on my arm had faded to silvery marks. Still visible, still part of me, but no longer painful to the touch. In many ways, they mirrored the emotional scars from that day, permanent reminders that would always be there, but which no longer held the power to define my life or my relationships. I had learned that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or removing consequences. It means releasing the grip that anger and fear have on your own heart, allowing yourself to move forward without being anchored to the past. My relationship with Martha would never be what it might have been, but it could evolve into something new. Something defined by clear boundaries, honest communication, and the shared love of a child. As a cool breeze rustled through the plants on our balcony, I took Jack's hand in mine. "We're going to be okay," I said, echoing his words from that first day in the hospital. All of us, and I believed it with my whole heart. I hope my story resonates with those of you who have faced difficult family dynamics or had to establish boundaries with loved ones. Have you ever had to make tough decisions to protect yourself or your children? Drop a comment below to share your experience. And if this story touched you in any way, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear that they're not alone. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember that your instincts are worth trusting, especially when it comes to protecting those you love.